Today, globalization has created multi-ethnic societies. In this context, the cultural and linguistic mediation, that is the science that focuses on communication in different languages, was born. The cultural and linguistic mediators are professional figures who are able to mediate among different cultures, societies, and organizations, thanks to their knowledge of the customs and traditions of the cultures all over the world. Linguistic mediators use translation and interpretation techniques concerning legal, medical, economic, scientific aspects, and so on. Among interpreting techniques, mediators and interpreters use different kinds of interpretive techniques that are negotiation interpretation, where the interpreter memorizes short messages and translates information into the target language. Simultaneous interpretation, where the linguistic mediator receives the message through an handset in a soundproof booth, translates it and transmits it to the interlocutor, and consecutive interpretation, where the mediator takes some notes, summarizes the message, and translates it from the sender to the receiver. At least, there is the whispered interpretation or chuchotage, that is a simultaneous translation whispered in the ear of the listener. The study of communication is very important for a cultural and linguistic mediator. Communication contributes to create our messages and also to have interpersonal and professional relationships. In this context, the role of the mediator is fundamental to clearly convey the right message from one culture to another, taking into account that communication is composed by 7% of verbal aspect, by 38% of vocal aspect, and by 55% of non-verbal aspect. As far as nonverbal communication is concerned, it is important to talk about the following aspects. Firstly, kinesics, that is the acts of communication expressed by the movements of the body. Secondly, proxemics, which analyzes the message sent through man's use of space. It is fundamental for a cultural linguistic mediator to know these two communication aspects. The first one includes elements like the facial expressions and the gestures that can change meaning depending on different cultures. For example, expressing emotions and feelings with facial expressions is something natural in Mediterranean Europe, whereas in Northern Europe this expression has to be controlled. Even eye contact is different from one culture to another, and in fact, staring into someone's eyes means attention and participation in the West and in Africa, challenge in the Arab countries, and sexual desire in Turkey. Proxemics, instead, helps the mediator to better understand and respect the personal space of other people in order to have an efficient communication. The cultural and linguistic mediator also has to refer to intercultural communication in order to understand how people who do not share a common cultural experience can communicate. The obstacles of this type of communication are most of all linked to the concept and to the use of time that can change depending on cultures. In fact, time is fixed and precious for European and North American people, while it can expand for South American and Eastern populations. It can be used to do one thing at a time in Germany and the United States, or to do more than an activity at the same time, like in Mediterranean cultures. Then there is the social respect. Asian cultures have a lot of respect for the elderly, and for this reason, most of the time they even adapt their register to the level of education of the elderly, while in Western countries this does not happen. Finally, concerning proxemics, There are different types of greetings that are becoming more and more westernized, even if are some small difference. African people are generally extremely confidential. They not only greet, but they also question how you feel. When a person enters a room in Argentina or in China, people stand up to greet the person, while in most cultures, people greet each other with an handshake. A handshake can be firm in Western countries, while it can be weak in countries like Japan, Costa Rica, and Indonesia. Instead of shaking hands, people in some Asian cultures, especially Koreans and Japanese, prefer to bow. The lower they bow, the more important the interlocution is. The traditional Arab greeting is composed of 3 gestures: the hand that touch the chest, the mouth, and the head. This gesture means, I will touch the ground for you with this part of my body, which is the maximum sign of respect. Even smiling can be an important element that can change from culture to culture. In Great Britain and in the United States, smiling when people means that you are happy to meet a new person, but in Japanese and Indonesian cultures, meeting someone is a serious moment, and in fact people smile only if they are embarrassed. The aim of this thesis is to underline the importance of the cultural linguistic mediator and their requires qualities in order to have an excellent mediation with all the different cultures of the world.